So thank you all for joining us this evening. I sent an email earlier in the week to just remind us all of the purpose of tonight. Dav has spent a lot of time really getting to grips, understand what's been the analysis really of Hill Lane, the matter of Hill Lane. And so tonight is the purpose really, having set up a working group after our February meeting to really understand the issues and the outputs that came from all of the other parties that were involved, to just lay it all out and let us understand the facts. So I am, if possible, going to ask you all to mute whilst I hand over to Dav to take us through the facts and the associated timelines, and then we can open up a discussion after that, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Good. I think Rose has just joined us, actually. Hi, Rosie.
Hi, Rosie.
Hello, sorry I'm late.
Oh, no problem. Technical issues in the way that always occurs. We're getting there. No pressure. I mean, it's relatively informal. Just before I head in, there's a lot of material to get through, as you might imagine. It's a multifaceted thing. And it's not a multiple way conversation. That wasn't the plan. It's really submitting to you observations that I've made, and absolutely as unbiased as possible. I'm just going to get stuck in. I do think it might take a while. So Lucy, you're the one that needs to wag your finger at me and speed me up or slow me down, because there will be some pace to this. But we're recording it. The slides will be available. It's not the only chance people have got to see it. And I'll also say it's my take on things, obviously. And you may well see things you don't agree with, or that are blatantly wrong, or things I've forgotten, or rabbit holes I've not gone down. It's not definitive. It's showing you that I want to invest time in understanding it, if that makes sense. Right, I'm going to attempt to share my screen. Share. Let me know when you can see that. Should say Hill Lane.
Yeah, we can see it.
Wow, that was quick. Good. Right. Are you happy for me to crack on, Lucy?
Yes, please.
Brilliant. So very briefly, it's quite a simple agenda. I'm going to talk about my scope and approach that I took in putting this together. And then it's split up into three different sections. The past, including a comfort break when we get to 2008, the present and the future. And really, for me personally, my passion lies with the last one, in progress and collaboration and all that good stuff. But also, I'm a historian, so I have absolutely laboured the point in the past. And I think for me as an historian, it's really important to understand how environments change, how communities change, and there's quite a large amount of information that's available to us from maps and photographs. And there you see I haven't finished typing, also satellite imagery. This is very much work in progress right up until the wire. So I apologize if there's spelling mistakes, grammar mistakes, things that look weird. That's because it's it's been work in progress for quite a long time, right up until about an hour ago. Right. There's a lot of information on some of these slides. I am going to paraphrase, but you won't miss out if you don't read all of this, because I'm definitely going to touch on all of these. So the approach I take is one from a past life. I was an auditor. I'm very, very interested in factual, obtainable source material and no bias. I'm not a solicitor. I don't ever pretend to be in any way, shape or form fully aware of legal issues and advice and opinions, all that kind of stuff. It's not my expertise, so I'm not exploring it. It's just not going to be in here. It would be wrong of me to try and even encompass that. Anecdotal information, got lots of that in the investigation from lots of different people, and I thank everyone who's contributed. So that's there, but I'm still going to focus on obtainable factual documentation. When I state an opinion that's mine, I'll be really clear that it's an opinion. I don't want anyone to think that it's somehow an official statement on anything. There are opinions in here. They're my opinion, no one else's, and you're quite within your rights, thankfully, in this country, to think that they're wrong, and that's fine. So the aim of my narrative is it's a non-biased understanding of the history of the area and the environment. That's crucial, leading up to present day, based on what I can observe. I'm not going to use personal emails or documents of any kind. Anything to do with disputed actions. I have quoted from North Somerset Council at one point just to talk about their position. Again, it's a statement of fact through observable material. It's not a definitive narrative at all. It's just a narrative. It's my narrative I put together to aid my understanding and promote dialogue, essentially. And the last section of the presentation is very much all about me. It talks about collaboration. There's a suggested approach that people might want to take. It's just a suggestion. You can throw it in the bin, but it's there. This is my time that I can, I can socialize that. And I've just briefly put some of the sources that I've used at the bottom. And anyone that has supplied images, etc. I thank you again for doing that. Okay, we start at the beginning. As far as the documentation is concerned in the past. Fantastic map from 1741, very kindly supplied by Yvonne and Nigel. It's a lovely piece of cartography, colour-coded. Essentially what they're trying to do here is show land that is owned by a landowner versus land that is owned by the city of Bristol. And you may well on your walks have seen stones with CB on them. That's what it means. It's boundary markers. So point of interest on this, I think it's important later, is that the foliage, they've actually taken time to draw hedges as bushes and trees, etc. And boundary walls are black lines. I've blown up an image of that here with orientation north, so I've had to turn it on its side. And I think we'll all recognise really what this one's showing us. We can see Middle Hill Common, that's coloured green. You've got the very striking shape of the lower half of the common. You've got the access to Weston Lodge. And there's even a building on the north side of that access. You see there's a red square there, which is, as an aside, Yvonne, I'd quite like to investigate that and see what we can see at some point. But this is the first available map that I could find that shows the area. Me being me, I want to see how accurate it was. So I've overlaid it onto a satellite image. And to give them their credit from the 1740s, it's not bad at all. It is not bad at all. Considering that these distances would have been paced out, that's good going. Yeah, okay, bits of it are off, but it's a good start. A point of interest there really is that there's no vegetation shown on the common. There's certainly not wooded area to the north side of the access there, and you can start to get a feel for how at the time the land was being used. I'll jump forward 100 years, 1840. We've got some more detail around Weston Lodge here with some buildings, various different plots. Now the numbers, they refer to a survey. So plot 39 will have a certain acreage when it's surveyed, as is plot 40, etc., etc. We can see different uses of the land. Absolutely no vegetation shown for plot 39 or 40, which is really interesting. Sparse, and now I believe these are orchards. So number 42, all the enclosures around the buildings. My take on it, certainly looking at later maps, is that they're orchards at the time, whereas you've got a wooded area in area 36. And yet again, it's got the same distinctive shape to the common. Hats off to the cartographers. It's a good map, actually. It's a nice, simple map. It does show all the salient features. And when you compare it to the satellite image, they've done a very good job, considering. Differences on there, I would just point out, the dog leg in the road, track, lane, whatever you want to call it, doesn't appear on this map. It's almost as if the access went up along the side of the boundary at this point. But otherwise, quite striking how such a long time later, the boundaries that we know currently are still there. Move forward slightly again. This is 1880s approximately. It's the first time I've seen the sharper bend at the top. So that's appearing for the first time on this map. Established trees, you'll notice, along the access and up the side of the common. Again, I would suggest that these sparsely populated trees further down, certainly to the south, are orchard more than woodland. The common, again, another point of interest, is shown as scrubland. There's no vegetation on there whatsoever. This is out of real my sort of curiosity. If you see within the blue circle, there's a tiny little dog leg in the boundary. Believe it or not, that still exists today on modern maps. That's how good these cartographers are. The actual boundary, little dip in the boundary there. So that's all I'm going to say on that one. It's a nice little close up. Again, when I overlaid it, this one's really pretty much spot on that one. So I guess the point I'm making here, we can rest assured that when Ordnance Survey were crafting this, they absolutely knew their craft. The next one I've got is 1930s. The north side of the route to Weston Lodge, again, is there's no trees again. So that's changed. Rough pasture again on the common. And then we have this orchard spacing of trees to the south. So that's all the maps that I had that were from the past. I then started to look at photographs. I'm sure you've all seen this one before. It's actually part of a set of 6 produced by Raphael Tuck and Sons. They were released in 1951, but they're actually photos from 1925, sorry. There's a set of 6. We've all seen them all. There's a few interiors of the church. There's a church, the famous one of the lady at the pump. This is part of it. And it's looking down from Middle Hill, and you can see the lay of the land as it was in 1925. Now, I tried to recreate this actually on my iPhone, and you end up, to get that shot, you are standing pretty much in the middle of the bulge that you've seen on the map on the right hand side to capture that. I'm sure you've all seen this one as well. This is looking in the opposite direction, and we get a glimpse of the north side being treeless. It's fascinating to see, and I would also argue that those three or four trees on the right hand side trailing away are marking that's where the lane is sort of bending round to the right hand side. Lovely picture, although at the moment I'm not able to pin down when it was taken. My gut feel is that it's older than the ones from 1925, but we don't really have much in the way of photos on the common, so it's a great one to have. Aerial photo, only one I could find. This is from 1953. Very, very top left-hand corner here. Those of you who've been here for a long time will recognise the power station chimney, but you can just about make out the village, Hill Lane, and an open area of common there that you can just see. And I think the white pixels there are the lodge just poking out from behind the trees. Unfortunately, the pilot seemed far more interested in taking lots of pictures of Clevedon than he did of the other way up the valley, which is unfortunate, but that's what we've got. This is actually an aerial photo. It looks like it's a satellite image. It's not. It's an aerial photo from 1999 of the bottom end of the common. Slightly blurred, but so I'm told by the kids it was a long time ago. There's another one that was I found this in the village hall, rolled up, large, big, blown up photograph. So I thought I'd take a shot of it from a different angle. Again, showing lots of undergrowth, and you've got a good shot of the common there as well. So I came across these and they were labelled 2007. I'm not entirely sure that they are 2007. So I put that they were labelled as a file as 2007. I've included them, but take that with a pinch of salt. I did not take these photos. I came across them. There's another one. And I'm trying to go chronological here. I've got a little spacer here for 1999-2000. Just to throw in the fact that as part of the Millennium Project, that's when the common was sold to the parish council. And I've looked at the deeds, lovely old, I say old, from originally from the 1950s onwards paperwork, lovely amount of paperwork that the parish council retains on the ownership of the common. And there's also lots of correspondence in there when they're discussing splitting the strip of common that contains the access, stripping that off as a separate entity. So I haven't scanned those in. They're quite delicate documents actually, but at some point definitely want to get those digitized for us. I found this in the Millennium book. This again was in the village hall. The original, I believe, is with the church. This is the copy, and it does mention Weston Lodge. In fact, all of our homes are in there. There's been very, very interesting finds from 22 years ago that have been quite enlightening for a few of us. The important one there that I've highlighted is the statement that carriages would have come up to the front porch via the steep path which starts at the end of the hilly lane, but which is now overgrown and never used. So we're talking there, and really why I pinpointed that as a historian, I've got this view now of Victorian carriages going up there, but also that it's changed. And really that's the theme of the different maps and different times. There's an ever-changing use of the land, ever-changing use of the trackway and the common, and that's, as a historian, that's really important point for me to put across. That nothing is static. We have to respect that. 2008. How am I doing for time? 20 minutes. That's not bad. I was going to have comfort break, so I think we'll keep going. So I'm very careful about my wording here, and you'll probably chuckle that I've used the word alleged, but that's me. I'm being very, very careful about what I say. I'm not in any way, shape, or form trying to make anyone feel anxious or angry or aggrieved at this. I'm again still stating facts. So the previous owner of the Weston Lodge alleged to have carried out significant works, reshaping the area, cutting back embankments, removing trees, soil along with vegetation, and importing lots of gravel and chippings. It's also said to have created unstable surface that's dangerous to walk on. Lots of rainwater can cause runoff, and it washes down the loose and unstable imported gravel. And the added and crucial dimension to the fact in the area is, of course, that it's also common land, which brings with it its own legislation. As I said at the start, I'm not here to talk about legislation. I'm not an expert. I'm just putting that in there as a statement that it's obviously a very complex space. It's fair to say there was a large magnitude of correspondence and discussions with various authorities, including but certainly not limited to the parish council and also Somerset Council, district councillor, and those residents that were impacted by what the events of 2008 were objecting to it. I'm not going to display those correspondence here out of respect for individuals involved, and also because my intention is not to jump into that very particular subject of how it was raised, who responded, etc., etc. I'm keeping on the straight and narrow with the environment, what we know, what we can see, what we can understand, and to go into that area would be a completely different style of meeting. So I've read the correspondence, and I took a long time studying very detailed information supplied by residents. And Ian and Penny, I thank you very much for the pack that you delivered to myself and Lucy. And that's really why we're here. That's why we got involved. I've talked to as many people as I can. I've looked at the site on foot several times. I've looked at obviously maps that you've seen, photos, satellites, etc. It's a very evocative subject. That is a statement I believe is factual. It's extremely evocative with a lot of people for different reasons. Some of them shared, some of them not. There is also a frustration that I absolutely recognise that these works that occurred in 2008, I believe that certain subgroup are really not happy with how authorities responded and how long it took and what's actually been done about it. I absolutely sympathise with that, and I got a good sense of that by reading the correspondence. More of a positive statement: everyone I've spoken to cares about the common. Everyone cares about it, doing the right thing, and that's an important point to make, actually, for what we'll come back to in a bit. That is common ground, excuse my pun, between everyone. Lots of eyewitness and anecdotal evidence, but again, I wanted to find something that could show me what was happening at that time. And I discovered it last night at 10:30. Satellite images. I have satellite images of the village from 1984 all the way up to the present day. I will absolutely, in fact, I'll send details about how you can do this. It's very simple. You download a Google app and you can actually look at them. It's been very interesting. So this is 1999. We all recognize that area. I don't need to explain what you're looking at there. Zooming in, again, this is not this is what I see. I'm saying what I see. Okay. It appears overgrown. So do the outbuildings there. I was not here in the village at this time. I was actually barely embarking on a career at this time, so we won't talk about that. Say what you see. That's it. I'm just showing you that picture. I'm not making any aspersions at all. Down the other end, lots of vegetation. You can see the common. It's actually very similar, not surprisingly, to the aerial photo that I found in the village hall. 2009, you can see there's obviously been a change between those two dates. I'm suggesting, this is my opinion now on the left-hand side, I'm suggesting that because you can see sort of green patch between tyres, that there's some sort of loose, it's definitely a loose, in my mind, surface there that's been applied. That's 2005 versus 2009 side by side, which gives you an idea. Now, it would be remiss of me not to show you a comparison between 2009 and more recently, because it puts it into even more perspective. And I'll jump between the two slides. That's 2018 versus 2005. So if I jump back between the two, the left-hand image hasn't changed, by the way. That's 2005. So wedged in the middle is 2009. And I find that fascinating. There's obviously lots of factors, time of day, shadows, quality of the satellite image, etc. But it just goes to show, oh, good, yeah, they're removing the 40-minute time limit. Brilliant, thank you. It just goes to show that even looking at the photographs, if I was just to see those images, I could draw some conclusions. But if I include 2018, I'm always back at thinking, well, this is a location that is ever changing, obviously with human interaction as well as natural interaction. But I think that's an important point to make. And again, absolutely non-biased. I'm just looking at photos here. I've got some photos as well from 2017, which I'll put up for reference as well, that show the entrance up to the gravel portion of Hill Lane as it curves away to the right. And pictures of looking down and looking up. We can see the surface there, and indeed the verge and the undergrowth. Okay, so that slams me back up to the present day. I'm sure there is other photographic or map evidence that's out there, but I think that's half an hour of looking at that, I think is enough, and it sets the scene. What follows is statements. Really, I'm making statements, and again, with no bias whatsoever, I tried to make them statements of what I believe is fact. Where I have opinions, it clearly states my opinions. I see this segment as a stepping stone. We've come all the way from 1740 up to now in, well, but quick smartish. And it's very important to talk about the present situation, but this is my stepping stone into future. So I've been up there several times, took some nice photos. It's a lovely part of the village. And there in here, when you guys get the pack, have a look through, compare them to previous images that you've seen. It's here for reference. Someone might come across this in 100 years' time and take it to Antiques Roadshow. I wanted to have current pictures in it. Scrabbling around up there, I could see an older surface, so I took some photos. Much harder surface, actually, it's fair to say, underneath. It's been exposed in a couple of places. Also, it was quite visible on one side, different grades of gravel. You can see where previous surfacing is intermingling with later surfacing. Thought it was interesting. I took a picture. No, not drawing any conclusions. I also thought it was interesting to have a look on the DEFRA website, which is it's once you understand how the filter works on the left-hand side, you can actually get to grips with what it's trying to show you. It's called Magic, if you ever want to go on there. We've got two areas that are highlighted by the DEFRA website. The first is a grassland habitat of principal importance, which is shown in the rather off-putting greeny brown. And then secondly, you've got the woodland habitat, which is the dark green. Now, originally, when you go onto the Magic website, if you do it, there's lots of filters and lots of colors all overlaid, and it's a painstaking task of going through and working out which ones apply to the area you're looking at. And those are the two that I found. So, present situation. These are statements, not in any particular order. Actually, these just came out of my head as I was making notes. So, new occupiers of Weston Lodge own the lower portion of the common, and they moved to the village during lockdown. The new owners were not aware of any of the legacy issues surrounding Hill Lane, and it's fair to say they struggled to get a clear picture of what the issues were. We're also new. We're new to the parish council, Lucy and I. We saw this as agenda items. We wanted to know more, and Ian and Penny very kindly got us involved, and that's what we're here to do. So our interest is in seeking clarity through investigation, through talking to people, and our core principle, I hope Lucy doesn't mind me talking for her as well, is to engage with everyone, engage with the community. What can we do to help? What can we do to support? How do you need us? How do you envisage using us as councillors? And this is for me, my core objective from doing this is to show everyone that I am prepared to put this much work into something that I know means a lot to people. And that's why we're here. That's our motivation for tonight. So the new owners of Weston Lodge inherited the driveway, its maintenance, and they sought advice from relevant bodies, and following that advice, began a planned repair using loose gravel. The owners of Weston Lodge have engaged all applicable authorities to understand their land and their responsibilities, and they very, very much want to follow the correct legal routes to care for their land. The last point is very special. Again, it's another, I'm going to throw the pun in, it's common ground again. There is unilateral concern that the current surfacing is not sufficient. That includes Weston Lodge. And I raise that point again, and I'll drum that home. It's not clear to me, and this is probably available somewhere, but it has not been clear to me who, as far as authorities are concerned, the previous owner engaged. So I can't comment. I'm just making that statement. It wasn't clear. There's been concern about vehicles, concern about speeding, safety of pedestrians accessing the common. There's concern about runoff during heavy rain, gravel causing a hazard into Hill Lane, the tarmac section. There's absolute frustration around the events of 2008 and in the way that authorities have responded. I recognise that. I'm putting that here. It absolutely has to be here. There is a frustration with residents on how it was handled at the time. So I'm just, again, don't shoot the messenger. I'm putting it up here, what North Somerset Council have said in 2020. I'm not going to read this verbatim. Essentially, they're essentially saying they've been out, they've looked at it, they don't consider it to be an option and an issue. In one case, someone's saying the case is closed. They're also saying anything that's happened over 4 years ago, we can't enforce against it. It's there on the screen. That's what I found. I'm not making comment on that either. Now we get into opinions, and my hands are waving around wildly. This is opinion time. You may not agree with this. That's perfectly fine. Looking at some of those issues in detail, driveway, track, path, whatever you want to call it. The maps show an access to Weston Lodge from 1741 to 1930. In fact, the earlier maps only show any access via the village. At some point, there were other trackways, lanes created to get into fields, and then beyond that, then at that stage, as Portishead is encroaching quite rapidly, especially in Victorian times, onto what was just open land down to the coast, and Portishead has encroached and it's caught up, and subsequently owners of the Weston Lodge have then opened up accesses that way as well. So at some point after 1930, the drive was not used as frequently. There will be people on this call that could put their hand up and say, I can tell you exactly when that happened. That's anecdotal. I'm just going by the map, so I'm going to stress that. The latest map I could find was 1930, because there aren't any maps after that that I had access to. So I've just got to go on what I saw. It's unclear from satellite image what state the access was in prior to 2008. There's a lot of tree cover. Yes, I can't see light reflecting off of gravel, but I can see there is something there. I can't tell what it is. So totally putting anecdotal evidence to one side, and there would be many people that could tell you what state that was in. If I look at the facts, as I saw them, 281 years of maps, they suggest it was a thoroughfare for at least 208 of those. The Millennium Book records passage of carriages in Victorian times. That makes sense to me, and I would, here again, it's an opinion. I think the dog leg was put into that entrance to support carriages going up there rather than the direct route. That's my guess. I looked at the census returns since 1841, and the lodge is on there every time for Weston Gordano. I'm actually doing, as a side, I'm doing a lot of research for the village based on the census returns that I'll publicise at some point. So I know these quite well. It's always in there, and it's always part of Weston Gordano. It's within the postcode. Land registry say, yep, that's where the house is. It's in Weston Gordano. Now, looking at the maps and the photos, satellite images, I'm hoping the message I've got across is that in a short passage of time, as far as nature's concerned, that whole area changes many, many times. The use of the land either side changes. In fact, the common itself and what that looks like changes. When the driveway is in use, it looks a certain way. When it's not in use, it very, very quickly becomes grown over and out of use. So my personal belief, again, opinions, I think for a long period of time, it's been a driveway. But passage of time and different ownership means that state, as you go back through the years, is in constant flux, depending on how it's used. Another statement of fact here, all the communications I found from North Somerset Council, the route is considered a driveway. Just throwing that in there. So again, I'm pressing the point, in a short period of time, invasive vegetation. Actually, I know, just speaking recently with Yvonne about how this is impacting the property further up. Invasive vegetation, it grows very, very quickly. It can very quickly take hold. It can change that landscape in a short number of years, which for us is a long time. For nature, it's nothing. So that, again, I will throw in there. And I'm actually going to go a bit further and talk about the common. In my mind, when I think of a common, the historian in me thinks of a certain thing. And I'm thinking back to those maps I showed you with the scrubland. It's obviously not like that now. And I do believe that common land requires very focused and specific regular management. And if that's left unchecked, or it's not managed in the right way, it can very quickly become overgrown and lose its original appearance. Gravel. This is a two-parter. There's a lot to this, but we're nearly over the hump. There was clearly, looking at that satellite imagery, a refreshing or a changing of the surface, whatever we're going to call it, in 2008. Now, using loose material, which is what Yvonne and Nigel were advised to do, is at the moment the option that we've been given. But I can't draw definitive conclusions to what else was done. I can't zoom in. I don't have that clarity on those images to go down and almost in a Google Street View way look around and see what happened. And there aren't photographs from on the ground that I have seen, because I would have them on here if I had. So I'm being honest, I do find it difficult to differentiate between what's management of overgrowth, vegetation, compared to destructive actions. So I can't comment. I literally can't comment. I don't have enough evidence there. In the more recent surface repair, inspectorate were involved. I'm assured that Weston Lodge are following the advice that they were given. Next statement, not related, it is steep. It is a steep gradient in parts, and that gravel doesn't give you the best grip when you're ascending. The loose gravel some of it will eventually move downwards. It's loose gravel. Factors such as rain, walkers, horses, vehicles, you name it, it's going to move. Some of it is going to move. Now, certain parts of the route are not safe underfoot currently. I've also been told, this is anecdotal, so I'm blagging that one, that by someone who's horsey, that it's a potential safety issue. I stepped over there. I'll be honest. I half slipped walking up there. So I know, I've been there. I know what it's like. And I can absolutely appreciate how some of that is going to find its way down onto the tarmac hill lane. I did observe that there was spill off on my visits. And it's important to note that's the highways maintained end, which is another added complexity to our challenge here. It's possible that some of the gravel on Hill Lane originated from other sources, for example, the old thatch. Very difficult to tell, but you can see there's different grades of gravel at play there. Again, this is an opinion, and I'm sure it's not going to be shared by everyone, but the amount of gravel that I've seen, we could remove it. We could remove it easily by hand, but this is going to be a repeating task. And that section of Hill Lane that's spilling downwards is an adopted highway, and it is the responsibility of highways. I'm not going to even make a comment on their ability to handle it. Not going there. Part two, if we don't have something to bind the surface together, over time, heavy rain, erosion, environmental factors would wash away or change the features. I'm throwing this one in again. Unilateral concern that the current surface is not sufficient. As a shared space for pedestrians and vehicles, I'm personally concerned for safety. And the current surface and gradient do make it difficult to go up, in my opinion. We've had many suggestions. I've got some to throw in myself. I'm sure everyone can become innovative on this, but there's been lots of ideas suggested. My take on it is having expert advice on the best option for surfacing, considering how it's used, environmental factors, and the gradient. I know highways are responsible for the adopted road, but and Weston Lodge responsible for further up. Everyone's got lots of opinions. I haven't currently seen anything that's foolproof. I've got some example suggestions that came from various locations, just to show that people are thinking about this. Cattle grid and a gate for horses and pedestrians on the side. It would have to be on the fatter portion of the lane. It would catch runoff. Again, we're back to this section being maintained by highways, and it's too steep further up to put such a thing in. We could narrow the footprint of the vehicular access, reclaim additional space, verge glass planting, pedestrians, etc. But of course, that is an undertaking, but it's a suggestion. And purely from a safety point of view, and actually my 16-year-old came up with this at dinner, and they said, "Oh, why don't you put steps in on the right-hand side, and that keeps pedestrians from other users. It makes their ascent easier." But then, of course, when you look at that on face value, yes, from a safety point of view, that might make sense. You've got additional maintenance, and it changes the look. So you see where I'm going with this. We can have lots of different ideas, but I think unless there is a coming together of great minds, they're just ideas. And without expert opinion, they're just ideas. Acrimony, frustration, well-being. Residents impacted from the events of 2008 are understandably, they feel very passionate about this issue. There is a feeling with certain residents that the parish council let them down, that the previous owner of Weston Lodge let them down, and North Somerset Council let them down. I'm putting that on here because it has to be said. That is a feeling that I've witnessed from speaking to people. And this one is as well. The current owners of Weston Lodge feel frustrated, so there was a lack of clarity over these issues. And when they moved in, they weren't involved with the events in 2008, and have been seeking opportunities to discuss this openly and find out more. And I'm hoping that that this presentation adds a little bit of that clarity that they want. There's absolutely frustration within the village. I've spoken to parishioners who are not in any way linked to that part of the village, and there's a frustration that there's a cycle discussing Hill Lane, but without progress or an end plan. That is not in any way finger pointing at anyone on this call or anyone else. It's a perception, it's a feeling that I'm noting here from talking to residents. This was an important one for me, and I'm sure it will be for Lucy. Negative feeling, anxiety, frustration, they are all detrimental to well-being. And as a parish councillor and as a parishioner, I care for the well-being of everyone in this community. Finding a positive and collaborative way forward, it's not just good for the common and the community, but it's good for everyone's health who's been involved and impacted by this. Now that's fair to say, a relatively modern thing to put on a slide, I think you would say, Lucy, but from my corporate experience, that is absolutely the way people are thinking nowadays. And that's the way we should think as councillors. We have to. Go on, Lucy.
Dab, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, you dropped out for about 30 seconds there.
Sorry. I was.
Back now.
Can you hear me now? I was just saying that
Yeah.
I think it's really important to me that everyone in the community is feeling positive, and it's important to look after their well-being. And I can see this eating away, and that upsets me. The future. Can you still hear me? I'm going to go into my final piece.
Yes, we can still hear. Yeah.
It's one slide. Is there a solution to this? If we work together, if the community works together, there'll always be more benefit to a situation than acrimony, distrust, fragmented motives, etc., etc. It's all part of that well-being and positivity. In a work scenario, you come across a problem, you look at that problem, you understand why it's happened, and then you make a plan and you work together as a team and move forward to a brighter future. That's I'm passionate about this. That's how I conduct myself at work every day. Some suggestions: agree common ground on the facts, understand the past, who was responsible, what the regulations are, because the more you understand, the more you agree your understanding, you are building a bond. If you agree on core priorities and you've got shared goals, you can move forward together. The more people you've got moving in the same direction, the more you can achieve. If you collaborate, we can enhance community and open spaces. I do feel, and I've said this before, we should engage with experts about the surface. No one is happy with that surface, and I'll drive that home. There is no one on this call that's happy with that surface. Come up with a plan, move it forward with transparency, and you'll start to gain support. Look to community groups, gardening club, for example. What if one of the ideas was that the verge was reclaimed and we'd plant certain plants, get people involved, you know what they're doing. More people you have involved with a common goal, the more strength you've got. Absolutely seek parish council support within our sphere of influence. And that one, I'm going to press home that one. We're here to support in very well regulated and documented ways. I think also, I'm going to be honest now, I think making this presentation and conducting this investigation with the passion that Lucy and I have, it's probably fair to say our parish clerk would say, you've overextended, that's not, you don't have to do that. That's fine. This is my approach. But there's certain things the parish council can do to support you, and that's what it's there for. And there's certain things that we wouldn't get involved in. Strive forward, bring about a positive solution. And we can spend too long understanding the past, and I absolutely get why you want to do that, because without it, it doesn't shape us now. But moving forward, that's where you've got power. You've got power to shape what is happening to that space, what it looks like, how it's used. And if working together, there will be far more successes to be gained doing that than not. that's my message, and I would probably keep rambling on if I didn't just stop there, Lucy.
Thanks, Dav. And there's appreciation for you. There's claps on the phone. So thank you for taking us through a lot of history there. Really interesting points that you brought up. The purpose of this call was to share the outputs of the working party. Does anybody on the call have any questions for clarity on what they've seen? Anything they want to chat through based on the slides that you've just been walked through? Okay.
I'm going to conduct a poll, and you don't have to take part. Just a thumbs up, thumbs down for the sentiment, for the approach, for whether you feel this is in any way, shape or form helped. Just a show of thumbs up, thumbs down would be appreciated. Bless you all. That's what matters to me and Lucy. Okay.
Stuff. Okay, so if there are no further questions for clarity or anything that anyone wants to add. Oh, Yvonne, hand up.
Oh, it wasn't. I was just surfaces and professional advice, Dav. You haven't actually looked at that yet, have you? Or have you got anything to say?
I have actually, and I hope no one on the call minds me doing this, but I'm actually a member of the Green Lane Association, and I receive newsletters from them. And for anyone that doesn't know, they essentially spend our subscription fee maintaining byways, green lanes, areas that highways aren't going to touch, and they have a huge amount of expertise, especially with drainage and loose material and non-metalled areas. So I've actually contacted their Somerset rep, and I've just laid it on the table. I've said, well, the parish council, if any of your experts had spare time to talk to us about options for how one meets the goals of the use and the gradient, etc., would you mind coming out? And bless him, he said, yeah, I'll meet you. I'm retired, I'm available any day. I'll come out and have a chat. It's one avenue that I thought was worth trying, and there may not be a perfect solution, unfortunately. Now I should have added in here that if there was a better option, there obviously are ways of going about having that done through official routes and seeking permission and et cetera, but to even know what to throw into that pot, if it was me, is very difficult at this time. But that's why great minds have to come together, in my opinion. But yeah, so that's what I've done on that front. I've reached out, and when the chap comes along, everyone's more than happy to turn up. But what he's actually going to do is, he's not the expert. He's going to come, have a look, and decide which person that he knows is best suited to come out. So I'm very grateful to him, and it's an avenue that I'm going to follow up, because you never know.
On that. Sorry. Does anybody know why so highways, there's Hill Lane is tarmacked,
yeah,
and then the next bit's gravelled, and why we got that gravel bit, which is highways and not just common land still with us? Why we got that split at the?
I can't answer that.
I spoke to highways and to confirm where it finished, and what it shows on the plan, they should have gone up just behind the back of the old thatch. They class it as a U road, and I don't know what therefore it's very, very low down their list of doing anything to make it a better surface or coming out and maintaining or anything. So a bit of why they didn't continue a bit further up, with the tarmac, I don't know. They just stopped it at the end of the old, well, before the end of the old thatch at the front. So
Do we know when that was done?
probably when people.
David, were you, Ian, were you there? Ian, when it happened? In a penny?
Did you hear the question? Ian?
You're on.
Okay.
I think you covered it off.
I suspect it was huge, decades and decades ago, if not 100 years ago, as it were.
What, they tarmacked it 100 years ago?
No.
Sorry.
No, the adoption. I don't know when the adoption happened. The tarmacking would have been just a sort of, local highways engineer's decision, I suspect. And just looked at it and just said, well, there's the last couple of houses on this lane in use today. That's where we'll go to. I suspect it was very much a man in a lorry just making a decision.
Yeah, I think that's another question we can pose to the Green Lane Association chap, who does have a lot of interaction with highways. But I will allude to the fact that in our conversation, he didn't think that highways would really be bothered with our neck of the woods. But that's his opinion.
I've spoken to them, and very little support from that. They're terrible to get hold of. It took 4 months to have a reply to an email. Oh, David wants to speak.
Go on, David. You're on mute, by the way.
Bless.
There we go.
Right. As far as I can remember, having moved into Weston Lodge in 1960, I can always remember, as far as I can, at the age of when I was a teenager, a young teenager, that Hill Lane's always had that surface on it up to the old thatch. So I think it was probably before at least 60s or before the 60s, because obviously a lot of the houses in Hill Lane weren't even built at that time. So so that as far as I can remember, going back that amount of time, that surface was there. I might be proven wrong, but as far as I can remember, it's been tarmac up as far as the old thatch. So if that wants to throw any light on that, then fine.
Thanks, David. I'm conscious that I've been talking a lot, but I'm hoping that what you've seen has urged you all to talk more. That's what I want to get out of this, because, and I've highlighted the points, everyone's passionate about the common. Everyone wants to do the right thing when it comes to the surface. Those are really strong common themes. And that's what this is all about. There is a lot of interest and it's all positive, and there's a lot of energy has gone into everything up until this point from all of you. And that energy is powerful. That energy can achieve so much if it's funneled into the right activities. And I personally, I'm not going to drive this. That's not for me to do. It's me. I've set the scene. I've put it into my words, and I'm doing the sales pitch now. I'm saying, look, you all want what's best for that area. Make it happen. Make it happen.
Yeah, go.
Well, I'd just like to say, hopefully on behalf of everybody, but I thought that the amount of work you and Dav put into this is very much appreciated. And me personally, and I know through sitting here, found some of the history fascinating. We really, our aim is to preserve what is there, to look after it, to look after the property and its wildlife and encourage that. So we've taken expert advice on that, but I really wanted to, we've said before on the parish council meeting, anybody's welcome to come and visit us and talk things through with us, because so far I know we've had lockdown, but it's actually doesn't make us feel very welcome, and we felt very upset on occasions, which I'm sure most people, residents, would not like that feeling or would not like to be in that position if it was them. Especially because we knew nothing about this until we moved into the property. So I'd like to thank you both again for all the efforts and all the work you've put into that, and to take this up, and hopefully that a solution can be found that's safe for everybody.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
On a completely different aside, because you've mentioned the history, sorry, Lucy.
Sorry, I just want
You have
to pick up. Sorry, Dav, let me just pick up on Yvonne's point. Thank you for being honest, Yvonne and Nigel and Tanya, for saying that, because that's the point, isn't it? We're all human beings. I'm relatively new to the village. Well, I've been here 5 years, but I feel like I'm relatively new to the village, and that's a really important point to make, that we work together as a village, and that's what we're about, and that is what the majority of us are all about, and certainly the people on this call today. So thank you for that. Sorry, Dav, I didn't want to interrupt, but I just want to acknowledge.
No.
Go for it.
I'm good.
Go on.
No, I'm good.
Sorry, I thought you had something else to say. Does anybody else have anything else?
Nigel,
Go on.
We're good, yeah. Just going back to the adopted road bit. So if the highways have adopted the road, does that include the verges either side, or is it just literally the gravel bit? I don't know if anybody knows. I'm
not 100% sure.
Ian was nodding his head.
Go in.
You can check on the North Somerset's planning portal. They have a thing called the planning map, and that is basically highways generally do include grass verges. It's fence line to fence line generally for highways. So a grass verge is part and parcel of a highway.
Okay.
In general terms, but the highways people will always refer back to what they call the definitive map.
Yeah.
And the definitive map is the one that actually says that's where this begins and ends. That's what dictates.
Okay.
And the same with with the boundary of the common, the registration of the common. Again, there will be a definitive map, and copies will be made from that. And any legal person may say, I would like to see the definitive map.
We've got copies of those. They were part of our switched off. They're part of our conveyancing, so we had all of that before we bought the property, which shows the clear highways, etc., and the common land.
Go on.
I was just going to say, so on that basis, the whole width of between the thatch and your property is the adopted, is essentially highways' responsibility to maintain.
Yes.
Right. Have you contacted the highways, Ian? Have you been in touch? Because we've been in touch with them. Have you had any luck about the gravel or the surface with them?
We've spoken to Nigel Ashton.
No, not Nigel Ashton. Sorry.
And I've spoken to highways directly, in the past about the gravel, but that was an in-person inspector who was, out inspecting. Spoken to him.
Sorry, I'm still here. I'm just not in a sightly position for you to have my camera on. So a gentleman came round. I don't know if anyone else, I know Ian didn't speak to him, but a young gentleman with a young toddler who I believe worked for the highways or North Somerset came and rang our bell. I would say about, January, February, it was lockdown time. He was looking at the bottom part of of the gravel highways bit. He'd already done a bit of research with Google Earth and had come out to have a look and agreed that the gravel was not a good surface, and he kind of was just chatting to us about the situation and said he was going to go away, and has nobody heard anything back from that?
Didn't know about that.
I think that was the gentleman that I wrote to towards the end of last year, October, November time, and I can't remember his name.
Okay.
Not Nigel Austin was involved with that. They got someone because it took over 4 months for them to come back. So I did have a call from the highways. I'm sorry, the name escapes me at the moment, but they did come out. He's possibly the gentleman you saw, and he did look at it and did confirm that that bit at the bottom of the lane, up to the back of your property, Rosie, was highways. So then I asked what was I did ask what their plan was as regards. I said we'd had neighbours that were not happy about the gravel. I asked what their intention was to do with regards of maintenance, and he informed me that it's classed as a U road, and therefore it was so low down the priority of North Somerset highways, it was nothing was going to happen. That's what he told me. But that's why I said to Ian, when I've spoken to Ian about it, if some energies could be in that direction, would be better if we could put our energies and positivity into putting pressure on the highways to sort that part out of the road. Because on previous one of the parish council meetings we went to, Kevin suggested putting a cattle grid in there, but you just can't do it. We can't do it because it's highways. So I think the more pressure highways get, and as I've said, it took them over 4 months, 5 months to come back to my email with chasing them every couple of weeks. So I think as a group, it would hold more weight if more people were asking for a meeting with them and discuss what they're going to do, if that helps. Okay.
Cool.
Does that help, Rosie, or was there anything else?
No, it does. I just wanted to, I just didn't know what the outcome of that visit was. He seemed quite open. I mean, he's only one guy in a group of people at highways, I'm guessing. He himself, to me, seemed quite open to sorting it.
Yeah, sorry. I'm gonna jump in just with two things. The fact that everyone is now talking about a very specific issue is amazing. Thank you for that. Long may that continue. This is aimed at Lucy. Is tonight the appropriate time for that? Or is that for the community to set up another bringing together of minds?
Well, I guess next steps is something that needs to be discussed. Whether this now has paved the way for you guys to get together and have your own meetings, your own plan about what you want to do. With any guidance or advice that you need from Dav and the research he's done, which, by the way, I have not been at all involved in. So thank you for thanking me, but I'm literally just running the meeting tonight. I just want to put that out there. Credit's due, Dav. But I do think that this has played out for me exactly what a successful meeting tonight was going to look like, and that was bringing you together as residents of Hill Lane to find your common goal, which was always there, but baseline knowledge was not all there. The foundation of what people know, people that have lived here longer, confusing, misconstrued messages, whatever the stuff that was going on, we now have a real clarity as to the situation, the facts. So what's next steps? And we've already established that you all have a passion for that. So my suggestion would be to hand over to you, and if you need any more support from Dav and his history, I know he'll be there on hand to provide that. But that would be my suggestion.
Yeah.
I'm certainly aware that there are a number of people who would have liked to have been involved tonight but weren't able to be.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that would be very useful is to, first of all, look in depth at what amazing research that Dav's done, and to think about it and to try and seek a way forward. I think one of the things that certainly I would very much welcome is there is a publication that I gave to Yvonne and Nigel right at the very beginning. It's a document called A Common Purpose, and it's about managing commons. And I think in that there's a very useful guidance about common land management. And I think that's one of the things that I think I would like people to have a look at. I'm quite happy to circulate that again to whoever might want it, to anyone that's interested. But that sort of thing where it looks at, of course, we look at the common as a very village thing, but in fact, it's more than a village thing. It's virtually a national asset. And I think that needs to be taken on board.
Okay, so anybody that's interested in this, that's a very good document to read. Is that what you've sent me, Ian and Penny? I think the pair of you sent.
I know it's in bundles that I've given to various people.
I recognise the title, so yeah.
It's Common Purpose. It's actually, once you read it sort of a couple of times, you can actually see that the sort of the meat of it's actually quite sort of condensed and quite sort of straightforward. But it is obviously, because it's talking to so many different audiences, there are obviously a lot of sort of background material there. But once you get to the meat of it, it's fairly straightforward.
So I guess. Oh, sorry, Yvonne. Yeah, go on.
You finishing? Just on that, I did read that document, Ian, but I just need to maybe just draw everybody's attention to the fact that what we've ascertained is probably the highways are responsible for the first bit. We are responsible for a small bit, but also the parish council own all of the common. So actually, we're talking about a very narrow strip of bit that runs by the side of our drive. So I've read all the maintenance. So that's a bigger discussion about the common. That I want to stress that the actual common is nothing to do with us. The top, on the road.
Yeah.
And that. Yeah. Sorry, Dad.
After you.
No, Ian, yours.
The common. I think I've given you. We circulated to the parish council the document that gives you the boundary of the common, and it clearly goes down to the bottom of the thatch gateway. And so the common is one whole. It's not in parts divided by ownership. It is one entity, and it really does need to be seen as one entity. I'm quite happy to recirculate that. Nigel Ashton very kindly asked the legal team, or whoever it was at North Somerset Council, to provide that to the parish council. And I think that's one of the first things the parish council need to do, is to actually agree that they accept that that is the boundary of the common.
I question that, Ian, because if we looked at the documents that the legal documents that the parish council own, and it's clearly split, clearly split.
That's ownership. That's ownership.
I think you get two issues mixed up. Yeah, I think Ian, there is one common.
Yes.
But what we're saying is part of it is the responsibility of highways, part of it is the responsibility of Weston Lodge, part of it is the responsibility of the parish council, who have leased it to the wildlife. Whatever they're called.
I think a critical issue about common land is that it's got one of those wonderful ancient British sort of things, that ownership is one thing, but legal interest is another, and that there is actually more people who have a legal interest in common land than just the owners. And ownership of common is often split, and that often makes it sort of difficult, but not impossible. And that's what we have here, is a piece of land that is registered common land that has split ownership.
Dav, come on in, please?
I'm really glad this part of the conversation has happened, because on my slides, I'm talking about understanding, or having a mutual understanding of the minefield, which is the regulations and the rules around commons and everything else. I'd love to suggest that that's probably one meeting for you guys and anyone else who's interested, is to get to discuss that in its entirety, because if that's always going to come back as an issue, you know, different people's understanding of regulations and how commons work. Once you agree that you all understand that, that's a huge stepping stone in my book. So I would suggest that in itself, between you all, is a really valid discussion point, so that everyone is understanding what everyone else's understanding is. That was hard to say, but you know what I mean.
Excellent.
Yeah.
You know what I mean. So
Good stuff.
I'm still recording. I'm just conscious that we're going to go. Just keep going, and I'm in 2 minutes. Not the fact that you're all talking. I think that's brilliant.
Last question, Nige. Go on. Go.
Oh, sorry. I seem like all I keep doing is coming back to the highways, but I think the point, I think is well made. It's one common. You've got at least three lots of people there. By far the majority is the main common. I'm saying the main common is the common, but you know what I mean. The bit on the right hand side, the big funny triangle. So and as I understand it, and he just mentioned it, really, this idea of named commoners, that's quite rare to have named commoners, as I understand it, from the limited knowledge that I've done a little bit of research on. But there is this whole general thing about it's the common land. So you literally could have somebody, who lived 200 miles away saying something about the land. But in reality, surely it's about, our parish and the people are here. And if we can get some common ideas about what we want the common, then if it went to DEFRA and you wanted to do something, that's going to surely carry by far the majority of weight. Somebody 200 miles away saying, I don't think we should do that, they'd have to have some very, very specific point about it, or some specialist plants or whatever it might be. It doesn't mean to say they haven't got a good point, but I'm sure that there will be a weight of locality, and I think that's the point, is that what we're trying to say is we've only got one bit. The focus has been a lot on us, or on the Western Lodge bit, and you go, yeah, but there's a highways bit and there's the main bit of the common, and it just seems a bit like there needs to be a sort of a common view about the whole of that, rather than just the little bit here. Because to turn around and just do what is not even 5% of the common is, you're sort of going, right, is the focus in the right place here?
Well, all the parties need to be represented. At the moment, it's owned by the parish council and it's on the wildlife.
Well, I think that's the other thing, is that here there's only a few people that you could say from the parish. So,
no, I meant the three represent the three areas.
Well, yeah, exactly. So you sort of say, we don't. It's very difficult to say that the group of the people that are here could decide all of this, and there's nobody else. There are other, as Ian pointed out, there's other people that have interests here, either those that are in the village, but also even people a bit further away. And so we can, just us discussing isn't going to come to a solution, because as soon as we come up with something, or we think, oh, right, we've solutionized this, here's the solution, you go, yeah, but then you've got to take it for consultation to other people. So
yes, but you've had the idea now. You both could drive conversations about the common, understanding in the common, and gain community understanding. Of course, parish council assists where it should assist, and as the owners of it, we're looking down the barrel of what happens when the lease runs out. Are we satisfied with how it's been cared for? What might we want to do? I can see I agree with Ian, with his gentle nodding there. My personal point of view is I'm not really keen on what's happened to it. I think personal opinion again, it should be under the parish control more than it is, especially for its maintenance. And I actually think there should be, and there used to be, a community group which is all about the common. That sounds, you know, going through the old parish pumps, I could see that was here. That was really engaging. People were engaging with the common. That is, again, another common goal for you guys and other residents to get together and discuss. Because you're absolutely right, Nigel. It's a multifaceted thing, and lots of people will have views. Now, if everyone shares a common vision, that's powerful. That's the power that we're looking for. And you guys are both passionate about the common, so make that happen. Let's make that happen.
Okay, good stuff. Is there anything else that anyone wants to bring up before we wrap our meeting up?
I'm good.
Good. I'm going to take silence from Holly and Simon and Rose.